Good afternoon, everyone. If I could just have your attention for just a moment, I would like once again to welcome you to the Annenberg School for Communication and Journalism, to this wonderful event that is organized every year by the Norman Lear Center and the school. And so I'm delighted to see so many people who have been here before and who have returned once again to this great event, and also to see some new people here as well who are joining us for the very first time. I'm the Dean of the Annenberg School, as I mentioned, and I want to take this moment to welcome all of you and to say how important this event is, especially at this particular moment in time. As we heard earlier today in the morning sessions, the nature of politics in the United States has become much more harsh, much more difficult to cover, and much more important. And so this biannual event, which has really claimed a position, I think, in the pantheon of awards for political reporting, could not come at a more important moment in our time. I'm already hearing great things about what was talked about earlier today. I was not able to stay for the entire event, but what I did hear reminded me of the importance of unbiased and brave, and I want to underscore the brave aspect of doing political coverage, especially at a time of infotainment and the other kinds of issues that Marty Kaplan and his great colleagues do study and work on and provide advice about. I spent a number of years on the Corporation for Public Broadcasting Board of Directors, about 10 years. And for better or for worse, I have seen up close the negative consequences of partisanship in Washington and other places, but especially in Washington, D.C., that can distort the image of the press, and more importantly, can distort the image of the political realities that we face. It's very easy in that town, as you know, to drop to the lowest level of ideology and rhetoric, regardless of the facts on the ground, And it was so impressive this morning to hear the good work that our winners are engaged in, with integrity, with professionalism. And again, I wonder to underscore this notion of a kind of heroism and bravery, because when the tide is moving in one direction, it does take a kind of bravery to stand against that tide and stand up for the traditional verities of what Geneva Overholzer, my colleague here at the school, calls information in the public interest. I just also want to welcome my very good friend Michael Kopp, who is here, who will be addressing us. I know he'll be introduced after your dinner. But I do want to say that Michael has been a man also of great integrity and great concern for the public interest. He has spoken out on issues that aren't always popular, and he has taken positions that are not always popular with the daily press and with certain political interests. I never get this quite right, but what's the great expression that part of the role of journalism is to discomfort the comfortable and...
afflict the comfortable and comfort the afflicted.
Right, say it again.
Afflict the comfortable and comfort the afflicted.
Exactly. Well, couldn't have said it better myself. And I have to say, by that criteria, Michael Kopp is one of us, because he has spent much of his career at the Federal Communications Commission doing exactly what he should be doing, which is to shine light on the dark places, to make those who are feeling overly comfortable, to remind them that there are other issues and people who are not as comfortable as they are in our American society. And I know that he'll have a fuller introduction after you finish eating, but I did want to welcome you once again to the Annenberg School for Communication and our great partnership with the Norman Lear Center. whose generous benefactor is here wearing the coolest hat in the room. I'm really jealous. I started to wear my lid, but I said, I know you would wear one that would outshine mine, but I do want but I do want to welcome Norman here as well, and bon appetit, and we'll restart the program in a bit. Thank you.
We're going to start our program just because we'd like to get out before tomorrow. And so please continue your lunch, but alas, suspend your conversations at least for a moment. For those of you who were not able to get to the terrific panel this morning, it's about the participants. My name is Marty Kaplan. I'm the director of the Norman Lear Center here at the USC Annenberg School for Communication and Journalism. Before I got up, the dean slipped me an exciting piece of journalism. Market Watch just the other day ran a story whose headline is "The Next Silicon Valley, USC's Annenberg, ? Journalism plus innovation equals entrepreneurship." So it's a great illustration of what's going on at the school, and we're thrilled that happened, and thrilled that those of you who are not with us all the time could be joining us today. I wanted to start by paying special tribute to someone who I love dearly, and who dearly loves America and so many causes that all of us care about. There would not be a center at the Annenberg School that studies the kinds of issues that we study, and that tries to make an impact on society in a way that we do. And these awards are an example of it, were it not for the unbelievably generous man and patriot whom I am thrilled is able to join us today. So please join me in welcoming Norman Lear. I am thrilled to be able to introduce our keynote speaker. I am an unabashed fanboy of our speaker. The FCC can be a dull or dangerous place, but it sometimes can be a force for good, or you can hear things which, if they made it into policy, would be good. And consistently for the past 10 years, our speaker has been that voice on the FCC. I'm particularly pleased at the interest he's paid to us here at the Annenberg School and to USC. The FCC has come here more than once to hold hearings. He's been kind enough to appear at the announcement of our research results. One of the things that characterizes him that's so exciting for an academic institution is that he actually thinks evidence is important, and that data gathering is an important aspect of public policy. And we've been thrilled to be able to work together in research and testimony and peer reviews of FCC work. He is about to step down after 10 years on the FCC, and it's a great honor for us that in those final days and weeks, he is able to come here and join us and tell us how it looks like from his perspective at the FCC. Please join me in welcoming Commissioner Mike Copps.
Thank you and good afternoon. The honor is all mine, believe me. There's no event I look more forward to than coming to this, and I was privileged to keynote, I think, back in 2007. It's wonderful to see so many old friends here, and hope to make some new ones while I'm here today. Also, I am really feeling honored to participate. This is a prestigious, and it's always a very inspiring event just to hear stories of success and to hear from folks who have shown, very often swimming upstream, what their medium is capable of doing to serve and to inform the nation. We'll hear more about their individual accomplishments later in this lunch, but their success in producing these very impressive public interest results does instill some cause for hope. So we are here to celebrate today, and celebrate in due course we will. But our celebration must also be tempered by the realization that all is not well in the land of journalism. The praiseworthy reporting that we honor today becomes harder to find because, quite simply, there is less of it. Across our country's media landscape, accountability journalism is, let's be blunt, struggling to survive. Your work is vital to the health of our democratic discourse, but as that discourse is fed a leaner news diet, democracy goes wanting too. Finding ways to nourish journalism is not just good for the profession of journalism, it's essential for the health of America's continuing experiment with self-government. Last time when I was here in 2007, Walter Cronkite was passionately leading the way in pursuit of a more robust media environment for broadcast journalism. He saw the problem brewing long before many of us had an inkling that things were going wrong. He saw the crisis coming, and that word crisis may be the most overused sobriquet in the world, but if it fits, use it, and it fits here, so I will use it. The very year 2007, Walter had agreed, without requiring very much urging, to deliver a keynote at Columbia University School of Journalism at that time at a forum, and he spoke very forcefully and very movingly about what was happening to journalism. He spoke of his early days as a reporter, saying, quote, "My generation of journalists knew we would have to work hard. We knew that our job was to expose truths that powerful politicians and special interests often did not want exposed. But we also believed that we would have the resources to do our difficult jobs. And for the most part, we were right." Today, Walter went on, I do not believe most journalists have the luxury of that expectation. Instead, they are saddled with inflated profit expectations from Wall Street. They face round after round of job cuts and belt tightening that require them to do ever more with ever less. And let's be honest, in an information age like this one, the need for high-quality reporting is perhaps greater than it's ever been. It's not just journalist jobs at stake here, Walter concluded. It's American democracy. It's freedom's future, end quote. And just to show you how passionately Walter felt about giving that speech, he was in Europe and he came home, and I remember talking to him and the staff with a very serious eye problem. Flew back from Europe into New York City. He was having terrible difficulty seeing. He was scheduled to go into the hospital for surgery the very day of the speech at the forum. But he insisted on delaying his arrival at the hospital so he could come to the forum and give that memorable talk. That's the way it was, as Walter would say. In the 4 years since Walter's troubling but prescient remarks, not only have we lost a true champion, but we have not yet turned the tide. In fact, the plight of journalism strikes me as only getting worse. The situation has morphed from one about journalists not having the resources to do their job to one about them not having jobs at all. And how much better America would be served if reporters were walking the beat in search of a story instead of walking the street in search of a job. Many of you have heard me before on the price broadcast journalism paid for the blistering pace of media consolidation that we experienced over the past 2 decades, an era of rampant private sector speculation, made even worse by the abdication of public interest responsibilities by successive federal communications commissions. These commissions not only blessed just about every media merger transaction that came their way, but they wiped the slate virtually clean of the public interest guidelines and responsibilities of licensees that had been built up by generations of reformers, of far-seeing journalists, of schools like this one, that taught the trade, and of advocacy organizations and other protectors of the public interest. And by the way, this is not such distant history. Big media likes to tell us the age of mergers and consolidations is past. Don't worry about it. I guess Comcast and NBCU and AT&T just never got the memo. And most of what I read from the analysts now is that the stars are aligning for more deals and more consolidation and more stations owned by hedge funds and banking trusts and private equity firms for whom the public interest may be a wholly alien concept. I mention the history not to dwell on how we got here, but to find some signposts, to search for some signposts of where we may be heading. The overwhelming majority of news we citizens get still originates in newspaper and broadcast newsrooms, including the news that we read online. It's just there is so much less of it because so many of those resources have disappeared. How many stories go untold because there is no reporter on the beat? How many facts never get dug up? How many wrongdoers are at work right now not being held accountable because the endangered species list has right on the top of it, I think, investigative reporting. How do you hold the powerful accountable when 27 states do not have a reporter accredited to Capitol Hill? And don't expect the return of good times, and good times are returning for broadcasting. Don't expect that to result in rehiring all those laid off reporters or the mass reopening of newsrooms that have been shuttered. Nor do I see the internet, in spite of some very compelling and innovative experiments, and we talked about some of them this morning, and some of them are successful, and more will be successful. But it's very difficult to see that internet developing anytime soon, the model or the mass or the momentum to fill the void that has eviscerated traditional media journalism. And truth be told, we don't have time to wait for something that may or may not occur. Even worse, there are a multitude of discouraging signs that new media is heading down the road traditional media trod as regards both private sector consolidation and public sector shortfalls. And allowing that to happen, in my mind, would short-circuit the most opportunity-creating and dynamic technology, broadband and internet, that's been created perhaps in the history of humankind. Not something to mess around with lightly or let travel down a road that should not be taken. Secretary Hillary Clinton tells us we are losing the information war. Around the world, yes, but right here at home, too. And she is, I think, so right. Informed electorates depend upon journalism for facts, not on talking heads hurling opinions at one another. I don't have anything against opinions. I love opinions. In fact, as you probably figured out, I have many of my own. Nor am I being partisan about this, because it is the absence of facts, not the presence of opinions, right or left, that so diminishes our national conversation. Senator Pat Moynihan reminded us long ago that while we are each entitled to our own set of opinions, we are not each entitled to our own set of facts. And that's where the problem is with so much of the so-called news. Too often it's opinion-fueled bloviation masquerading as news. Rather than supplementing news, opinion-mongering is supplanting news. And I am here not to advocate that we take anybody off the air. I'm just trying to make room for facts on the air. A lot of folks, foundations, universities, advocates, are helping tee these issues up for a national dialogue. A lot of folks in this room, I think, are doing yeoman work in that regard. this institution being a leading force in researching and then telling the story. Now I want the place where I work, the FCC, to start doing its part. I spent my first 8 years at the Commission fighting just to hold on to what was left of the public interest in our media and telecommunications worlds and in our rules. And sometimes we managed to stave off a really crazy idea or two. But the tide still ran all those 8 years very strongly the other way, toward more consolidation in traditional media and in new media, toward a gatekeeper's internet rather than an open internet, toward ever more evisceration of the public interest. And I think many of us knew that real change at the FCC awaited bigger change in Washington that would finally open a window for change and progress. And then that new era finally came at the end of 2008, and a window opened, and many of us thought real media reform was just around the corner. Alas, it has been 27 months now, and we're still waiting. We're still waiting for media reform, or even a down payment toward media reform. Waiting for a public interest licensing system with some guidelines to encourage news and diversity and localism across all of our markets. Waiting for something credible to replace the slam dunk license renewal system we have now, wherein a broadcaster sends us basically a postcard every 8 years and gets a license back with virtually no questions asked. Waiting for the sun to shine on who is bankrolling all those political ads we saw on television in the last election cycle, post Citizens United. Those ads totaled more than $2 billion for our media. You know, if a beautiful ad sponsored ostensibly by Citizens for Spacious Skies and Amber Waves of Grain is really being paid for by a chemical company that refuses to clean up a toxic dump, don't citizens and don't voters have a right and an expectation to know that? I think they do. Fuller disclosure would give citizens information that they need to have in order to make intelligent decisions about the future of their country. Both sides of the political spectrum have committed sins of commission and sins of omission here, so this should not be a partisan issue. And it's an issue that people get and understand, and I think it's one that we really need to tee up, and I'm doing my best to try to do this. Anonymous ads sidetrack our civic discourse. Let's put a face on them and let people decide. These are just a couple of things that we at the FCC can do right now under our current statutory authority, not something we have to go to Congress to request. We should do these things now. It's our opportunity and it's our responsibility. The one item we have been promised at the FCC is a long-delayed commission report that will assess the media landscape and the information needs of communities. A lot of us here today have been assessing the media landscape and the information needs of communities for many, many years, and Annenberg has led the way. So what I hope this report delivers are some hard-hitting action recommendations that can be implemented before the end of the calendar year, and I believe that a report falling short of that will have failed the public interest test. Here's another discussion the country needs to have: the future of public broadcasting. It is utterly unfathomable to me that some in Washington are trying to gut the very limited funding we currently provide for this precious news, information, and education resource. Other democracies leave us in the dust by investing really meaningful resources in public broadcasting, while the issue here is, should we line it out of the budget or not? I was in Sweden a few months ago. In Sweden, every household gets a bill every year for $300 and some to support television. In other countries in Western Europe, I think it's around 100. Great Britain's 80 or more. Free Press tells us in the United States the per annum per capita expenditure on public media is $1.35. $1.35. And we're going to get rid of that now. We're going to try to get rid of that now. Unbelievable. We're very fortunate to have Gwen Eiffel here today, and I want to commend the fine work that she and the entire team at PBS's NewsHour do week in and week out to provide us with the news that an informed civic dialogue really requires. And who could question the great work that NPR's reporters do on a daily basis to inform us about goings-on in our own backyards and events around the world? And I particularly salute NPR for its commitment to operating bureaus worldwide while others have packed up and come home. And these last weeks have surely shown us the importance of knowing what's going on around the world and having reporters there who we know and can trust and have the expertise rather than some stringer who you'll see one night and you'll probably never see again and you don't know what axe that individual has to grind. Providing a vibrant future for our media, to me, is the single most important thing you and I can do to preserve this democracy of ours. I feel that strongly about it. A lot of other big issues crowd in for attention, and we can sit here and take 5 minutes listing them. But none of those issues has a chance of being satisfactorily resolved until they are first covered and explained and given to the American people. So if one of those other issues is your big issue, whether it's peace or war or jobs or the environment or energy or health or what it is, ask yourself, are you happy with the way the information on that issue is funneled to the American people right now? Is the way that information is being funneled to the American people increasing the odds that your issue is going to be satisfactorily resolved? And I bet most of you would probably have to say, no, it's not. This country of ours faces some seriously stark economic and social and all kinds of challenges in the years just ahead, running the gamut from how to create opportunities for individuals to how to sustain the competitiveness and the preeminence of the American economy and the American nation. Things that my generation took for granted are not even close to being assured for the generation that's coming online. But to overcome those challenges, you've got to understand those challenges. So it's my fervent hope that the stories and the reporting we celebrate today challenge each of us to do more to secure the robust future for journalism that this nation so desperately requires. Later this year, my second term at the FCC will run its course. But I want this group to know, especially because I see so many friends here, I want you to know that I will remain committed to these issues and committed to working for them and committed to working with you for howsoever long it takes us to find a resolution and to make some progress. It's not something that you or I or even the FCC can do all alone, but we can make a difference. And we can get some results. And we can find ways to make sure democracy's citizens are informed and enabled to preserve democracy's future. Our friend Walter Cronkite said it much better. He said, America is the most prosperous and powerful nation in perhaps the history of the world. We can certainly afford to sustain a media system of which we can be proud. End quote. Again, congratulations to our winners. We are proud of you, and we thank you for showing that it can still be done. Keep up the good work. And for the rest of us, let's do everything we can to provide a helping hand. And now it's time to celebrate. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mike, and we're glad you're going to continue to fight the good fight. There are so many thank yous I wanted to mention, but there's one in particular that I want to be sure not to omit. The Cronkite Awards began in 2000. These are two photos. We were better dressed then. And you can see Walter Cronkite holding the award, which will be presented today, and there he is with Katharine Graham, another loss since then. Katie Couric was a winner, a special commendation last Cronkite Awards, and when Walter Cronkite died, she did a piece about him to end the evening broadcast. And I'd just like to show you a clip from the end of that broadcast.
In 1996, he told us how he felt about the amazing century he had witnessed.
If there's anything I've learned, it is that we Americans do have a way of rising to the challenges that confront us. Just when it seems we're most divided, we suddenly show our remarkable solidarity. The 20th century may be leaving us with a host of problems, but I've also noted that it does seem darkest before the dawn. There's reason to hope for the 21st century, and that's the way it will be.
At the panel last time, Katie told us that Walter Cronkite wanted to name his boat Assignment, because at the end of the broadcast, someone would say, Walter Cronkite is on assignment. There are a lot of moving parts that led to today, and I wanted to start by thanking the screeners and the judges who spend the considerable number of hours it takes to watch and write about and think about and discuss all of the entries to the Cronkite Awards, and a number of them are here, and I would just ask if the screeners and judges would rise as a group and we could thank them. The Lear Center staff does an amazing job. This process takes nearly a year. It's very labor intensive. Lots of people are involved. Many of them are here today, along with Annenberg ambassadors and interns and students. I particularly wanted to single out one troika that was at the center of it all, and that's Adam Rogers, Scott McGibbon, and especially Veronica Haudeke. If you could just stand. Veronica's over there. I'm going to introduce to you just now so you can make eye contact with them. They're going to take us through the first set of awards. Judy Muller is there, and Geneva Overholzer is here. And Geneva is the chair of the judges panel of the Cronkite jury. And I would invite you, Geneva, to come and start the awards. Please welcome Geneva.
Thank you so much. It really is such a delight to be here today with our distinguished Cronkite Award winners and with all of you honored guests, and what fun we have before us. So let's get to the trophies. The first category of winners we honor today is Local Broadcast Station, and this year we have two winners. In the large market category, Seattle's KOMO4 TV won for its sophisticated yet clear coverage of both state and local elections. Judges and screeners praised the station's masterful use of technology and graphics and its one-on-one interviews that delivered good questions and resulted in revealing answers. Let's take a look.
Who will win the Senate seat depends on what happens in a handful of key counties. For some perspective, let's take a look at what happened in the 2008 race for governor between Dino Rossi and Chris Gregoire. Rossi won the counties here in red, primarily in eastern Washington, and Chris Gregoire did extremely well in the highly populated counties of western Washington. Now let's change the map to see what happened in August in the U.S. Senate primary between Dino Rossi and Patty Murray. You're going to see a lot more blue, especially here in Southwest Washington and even in a couple of these key counties over here in eastern Washington, Franklin and Spokane.
It's one of the most controversial items you'll be voting on this November, a proposed state personal income tax. KOMO 4's Denise Whitaker takes a closer look at Initiative 1098.
Chances are you feel like taxes put an unfair drain on your wallet. People in favor of 1098, the sales tax initiative, agree, saying the tax code's unfair.
Poor people pay a huge proportion of their income to support the public good, and rich people, like me, pay almost nothing.
Nick Hanauer helped write 1098. He says poor people give 12 to 17% of their income to the state in taxes, while the rich, he says, give up just 2.5%. To make it fair, Hanauer says 1098 would tax only the rich.
You know, a wealthy family only uses the same number of diapers as a poor family, right? But diapers make up a very, very infinitesimally small percentage of what you actually spend if you're wealthy.
Couples who earn more than $400,000 a year would pay a state income tax if 1098 passes.
If you aren't completely satisfied with your new income tax, you won't get your money back.
The group working to defeat 1098 says the initiative process is not the right path to reform.
Let's make it very simple. 1098 creates a state income tax.
Matt McElwain, part of a coalition of business leaders working to defeat 1098, says it would weaken our state.
We go from having a competitive advantage that we have in the state to attract companies and talented individuals to our state to having the least advantaged, the biggest disadvantage in terms of income tax policy of any state in the country.
I think that's completely false. If it was true, then Steve Jobs would have relocated Apple Computer to Washington State already from that yucky state, California, where taxes are high.
This is the first win for KOMO, a Fisher-owned NBC affiliate. KOMO anchor Dan Lewis is accepting on behalf of the station. Congratulations. Really nice.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You want to say a few words?
Yeah, just a couple. Geneva, thank you. This is a great honor. And we at KOMO, we turn our call letters into words up in Seattle, are very fortunate to have the support and backing of our whole team, from the top all the way into the newsroom. Our CEO of Fisher Communications, Colleen Brown, not only supports our coverage of politics, but pushes us in the direction to do more. Our general manager, Jim Clayton, who is here today, is very much in support of that effort. Our news director, Holly Gaunt, who is also the vice president of news for the Fisher stations, is a big supporter. Not only supporter, but very hands-on. She gets deeply involved in our voters' guide and some of our other big projects. Another sign of that support is Janine Drafts, who leads our sales department, is here today to support and accept this honor. One thing that happened early in my career, I happened to interview Mike Wallace of CBS News. And I remember asking him, I was 25 years old, I said, all the great people, the politicians, the celebrities that you've interviewed, have you ever been in awe of anyone? And he said, no, he couldn't. He couldn't allow himself to do that because that could interfere with his coverage of the story. Well, a few years after that, and my opportunities have come to interview quite a few people in the White House and around the country, I was doing an interview where I found myself more than a little bit in awe, and it was an interview with Walter Cronkite, who I had looked up to and admired, and to this day, when I think of journalist, I think of Walter Cronkite. That makes this award even more special for us at KOMO. Thank you very, very much.
That's lovely. Congratulations to KOMO. Our second winner is the local broadcast station small market category. KION, maybe it's Kion, who knows? KCBA, Central Coast News in Salinas, California, a Kohl's-owned CBS affiliate, operating with its sister station, a Seal Rock-owned Fox affiliate. KION KCBA, a first-time winner, impressed judges with its resourceful, ambitious coverage of how state furlough days waste taxpayer dollars, with its informal interviews with Jerry Brown and Meg Whitman, and for letting over 200 candidates speak for themselves. Let's see the clip.
If you talk to the governor's office, they'll tell you furlough Fridays are expected to save $1.4 billion, and say to date they've already saved you $1.2 billion. But this short-term savings is masking your long-term spending on vacation payouts.
Many employees have used those 3-day weekends as a sort of vacation plan, if you will.
You get other things are taken care of, and the time just isn't really needed right now. So, so I'm saving mine, and it's the way I have my lifestyle right now.
Employees who are saving up vacation time because they've been using furlough hours instead will resume using their vacation time when the furlough program ends this June.
Or so Linnell Jolly with the Department of Personnel hopes, because last year alone, close to $200 million was paid out to workers who left state service.
Some of those are leaving with larger vacation balances than we would like to see.
The California Taxpayers Association's latest report on state waste shows one example of a prison doctor who accumulated 4 years of unused vacation time in only 10 years on the job. The state had to pay him $815,000 when he left.
To many people, Meg Whitman is an unknown. If a vote for Meg Whitman is a vote for what?
I think it's a vote for someone who has spent 30 years in business, who knows how to run large organizations, who deeply understands the economy and has created jobs. You probably know at eBay we went from 30 employees to 15,000, and more than 1 million people make their living, or most of their living selling on eBay.
She's saying she's got eBay. She ran the biggest, this gigantic company, and knows how to create jobs, knows how to run a big operation.
Well, let us look at that over the course of this election. Whether it's Poizner or Miss Whitman here, being a CEO, I want people to really get this. That's an autocratic position. The difference between running a business with all that authority and being the governor, hemmed in by a Senate, an Assembly, 2 political parties, and all these judges looking over your shoulder, nothing could be different. There are 2 complete differences. And by the way, if you were to apply for a job in business, you wouldn't show a resume that said, hey, I've never been in this business before, I've never held a job, but I want to be the boss.
Hola, me llamo Ana Caballero y estoy postulando para ser senadora de este estado. Pido su ayuda el día 2 de noviembre. Esta elección es bastante importante para nuestra comunidad.
Accepting is the executive producer of Central Coast News, Matt Stein.
I know. Thank you. It's KION. We don't spell out. We're very honored and humbled to be here with all of you guys. I mean, so many great news organizations talk about a small market. We're a small market with not a lot of people on staff, about 35 to 40 people. And what you saw there is just some of what they all came together to put out over a year-long period. Blows my mind that people that are so young and so inexperienced in a lot of cases, because it's a first and second job for a lot of them, could put out hundreds and hundreds of hours of political coverage last year, including on election night, 4 straight live hours of election coverage on 4 different channels in 2 languages. So to be able to do that and to be able to know that the station is making progress and being recognized for what we're doing is just an incredible honor, and to be here with everyone is just as an incredible honor. And I'm not good at speaking, that's why I'm not on TV, so thank you very much.
Our next category is Local Station Individual Achievement. This year we honored first-time winner Christina Boomer from KNXV ABC 15 in Phoenix, Arizona, a Scripps station and ABC affiliate. Boomer won praise for her innovative use of social media. I should say so. I mean, like gymnastics of social media to bring online voter questions to candidates in real time. And we are talking real time, all those tweets while you're taking pictures. And for her thorough coverage and follow-up at a gubernatorial debate. And she shoots and edits her own footage and posts raw footage of candidate interviews online. I'm hoping we got the raw footage, but I sort of doubt it. Let's take a look.
Immigration and the economy front and center at the first debate in the race for governor.
But in Democracy 2010 tonight, ABC 15's Christina Boomer breaks down what we never expected to happen next.
Republican Jan Brewer claimed union-orchestrated boycotts of Arizona following SB 1070 hurt Arizona's economy.
Talk about tourism, when we talk about driving the economy down, it's because people like Mr. Goddard's supporter, the unions that are calling out and screaming out for the boycotts, they want to drive our economy down.
After saying he never supported the boycotts, Democrat Terry Goddard argued the governor has also played a role.
What is hurting us right now economically are statements, false statements made by Jan Brewer about how Arizona has become so violent, that we are a place of fear, that we have beheadings in the desert. Those are false statements. They cause people to think that Arizona is a dangerous place, and they don't come here and they don't invest here because our governor has said such negative things about our state. And Jan, I call upon you today to say that there are no beheadings. That was a false statement, and it needs to be cleared up right now.
And Terry, I will call you out. I think that you ought to renounce your support and endorsement of the unions that are boycotting our state.
She sidestepped the question about the beheadings several times. So as soon as she emerged from the debate, I asked her, why wouldn't you recant the comment you've made earlier about the beheadings in the desert?
Seriously, that's a serious question, Governor.
Well, this was an interesting evening tonight.
She doesn't answer. Instead, reiterates a debate talking point, charging that Goddard doesn't have a plan. Brewer, why won't you recant the comment about the beheadings?
To move forward.
Okay, but Governor, seriously.
As other reporters chime in, demanding an answer, this happens.
Governor, please answer the question. About the headless bodies. Why won't you recant that? You still believe that? Come on, Governor.
Okay, thank you all.
Governor, what do you make?
Well, I'm astonished, frankly. Everybody who's studied this knows there are no beheadings. Arizona has the lowest violent crime rate we've had since 1983. Our law enforcement has done a great job. And why the governor won't simply say, I was wrong. There were no beheadings. Arizona is safe. I do not understand. This is hurting us incredibly.
I did tweet the entire debate, so you can find that feed under my name on Twitter. We've also taken raw sections of the debate and separated them into 5-minute chunks by topic. You can find that right now on abc15.com. That way you can click and hear about the issue you care about. Christina Boomer, ABC 15 News.
We're happy that Christina Boomer is here to accept the award.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you all for having me. That was actually a very climactic moment because it was an issue that had been in our community for several weeks and months leading up to this moment. So it's something that I did my own research on and found out that there were no documented beheadings anywhere on the Arizona border. There were happening in Mexico, but not on the U.S. Side. And so when that moment happened in the debate where he sort of squares his shoulders to her and confronts her, it was just a neat moment for our community. But you saw there at the end all the different elements that we talk about. So it's the moment it brought you on TV. And then, of course, there's the little elements of taking the raw debate and putting them on the website. And then, of course, the entire time that the debate was happening, there was what I consider a live Twitter feed. I use Twitter sort of as a news feed. Right now, if something were to happen on this campus, right around the corner, what's the number one way you all would find out about it?
call you.
Call me. Your phones would be going off. Those phones that are in your pockets and on the tables and in your purses, that's how you would find out about something now before you'd find out anyway else. And so that's why it's so important for all of us to make sure that we're on those forums, on those platforms, so that they hear about it from us and we can still be using them to inform. And that's what I think was really interesting about this award when I was thrilled, obviously, to win it, but I thought it was really neat on USC and Norman Lear Center's side that they acknowledged not only the social media platforms, but engaging people on all these other different platforms. Because really, our industry has been struggling for a long time on what that means for us. You know, we get so scared sometimes with change, and we think, the way that we gather news and deliver it is changing faster than ever. It absolutely is, but in so many ways, that's a wonderful thing to embrace because it allows all of us to reach our viewers on all these different platforms. So a lot of people will say 140 characters, that's not journalism. It absolutely is journalism. So that this coverage that you saw, when the debate was happening, I was tweeting literally the entire time. So it would be, the candidate's name and what they're saying, and I would have like a subject, like public education, like, okay guys, we're on public education, and here we go, and it's this person, and they're doing that coverage via Twitter is probably more comprehensive than anything else that I would have been able to provide on any other platform. And in fact, and I showed it to, and I'm about to introduce him in a second, but my boss, my news director, Joe Hagemuller over at ABC 15, I got pages and pages of tweets back from people thanking me. Because at the end of the day, the debate's happening at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Who the heck can watch a public debate at 4 o'clock in the afternoon? Not a lot of people when they're working, but they can be following up on it, right? They've been getting those like text messages that essentially arrive on their phone. And so they know now what all the candidates are saying. I had pages of people not only thanking me, when the next debate came up, next week was the Attorney General's debate, I had people emailing me and asking me if I was going to be tweeting. Say, are you going to be there? Because now I know what the debate's going to be because you're going to be there. And so that gets to, while this is an award for individual achievement, as a reporter, you're only as good as those internal gatekeepers, those producers and general managers that green light you or not. And so for that, I want to thank Joe Hagemuller, my news director at ABC 15, for green lighting me and putting up with me, really. When I have these passionate pitches, and sometimes, there's sometimes where they don't make air, they just can't. But keeping that persistence and having someone who values that coverage is obviously very important, because without him and without my producers allowing me to do it, obviously it wouldn't happen. And I also want to thank, because they flew all the way out here from Miami, Florida, my parents and my grandfather, Andrew Vasquez. And my grandfather is the entire reason why I love politics and government, because he is an avid reader of the Miami Herald. I don't think there's been a morning I've ever seen you without the paper. And I spent much of my youth with my grandfather. He would give me half the newspaper and assign me articles to read, essentially. And then, and I'm like 7. And he would read them, and then we'd be like over brunch, He's like, you read this part, and I read this part. And then after we were done, we would discuss. And we would discuss what we read in the articles and what was important and what the current events are about. And he was also an auditor from Miami-Dade County. And so holding government officials accountable was literally his job. And when the county wouldn't hear him, he would sometimes leak pieces of information to the media. So we love this man, right? He had a favorite local news reporter, print, from the Herald, and a favorite local television reporter. And I don't know, somehow they would get mailings from him, and all of a sudden there were these great investigative exposés. And the other thing that was really neat is, and the reason why they're out here is because my grandfather went to USC. And so he's really proud of you guys, and he wanted to make sure. He immigrated from Cuba, and when he came over here, he would work the old streetcars in Los Angeles during the day, which then morphed into the city buses. And at night, he would attend classes at USC, and also raising a family. I mean, it was tough, but he did it, and he graduated in 1971 from USC with a degree in business administration. And so that was the other reason why he was so excited to be here. And I just wanted to use this opportunity to tell you, in front of all these people, thank you, because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here with this award. So.
That's a wonderful story. I'm about to turn this over to Judy Muller, but I have to say, as director of this fine journalism school, the delight of being able to to have these awards which enable us to recognize the really fine work that people are doing despite all the unsettlement. And to be able to share this with my colleagues and with many of our students is just a rare pleasure and really, really wonderful. So now, Judy, it's all yours.
Okay. Marty, next year, this is the point where you want the spotlight up. Okay. Our next category is for local cable station. And this year, Central Florida News 13, owned by Bright House, got top marks for its informative, in-depth coverage of seemingly mundane election issues that other stations ignore, and for its Election Day voter helpline. Take a look.
It is Voter Helpline Day here on News 13. We've got representatives of the local supervisor of elections office here answering the phone. If you call with questions about, are you registered? Where are you going to vote? Can I have an absentee ballot? 1-866-407-HELP.
You see the race on the ballot, but what is it? Who wants the office? And why? We've got the inside dirt on soil and water tonight at 6.
2 seats for the Orange Soil and Water Conservation Board will be decided in November, but the candidates are hardly making a splash.
Are you familiar with soil and water?
No, I am not.
Do you know who's running for it?
No.
There's a total of 6 candidates up for 2 seats, all running with no party affiliation and little recognition.
I guess I have no money to advertise.
Some do spend thousands for campaign signs, but there's no monetary payoff.
Here I am, and it's free. No charge to you.
Unlike county or city commissioners, soil and water supervisors don't earn a paycheck.
Yeah, I would be surprised to hear that. I'm not sure why you'd want to do that, because I'm not sure what that job is.
The Soil and Water Board is now running on fumes. Although created by a Florida legislature, it gets no money from the state. The board used to collect a percentage from large development projects by monitoring their impacts on the soil and water. That all stopped 6 years ago. The board now has only $2,500 and focus now on teaching kids one important message.
Water is a matter of life or death.
So when they are introduced to something in the school system and they come back home, they're talking to mom and dad about those types of things, there's this kind of percolation process that takes place, and those things start to move towards more importance within the households.
District 2 incumbent Timothy Blevins admits Soil and Water Board is not a political powerhouse, but some candidates treat it as a springboard. Former Orange County Commissioner Mildred Fernandez was on the board before becoming Orange County Commissioner. But not everyone had the same results.
They ran for it thinking that this was going to be a stepping stone into perhaps other political arenas, and then found that there's really not a whole lot of activity with this, and therefore they just quit being active with the board.
Blevins knows that firsthand. Governor Charlie Crist appointed him a seat with Soil and Water 7 months ago. The previous supervisor simply stopped going to monthly meetings. Now, Blevins says the state could always decide to shut down these soil and water conservation districts, but that's unlikely since they have really no impact on the state's budget. These supervisors say they plan on now trying to generate new sources of revenue, meanwhile trying to become more of a presence here in the community.
And Robin Smythe, Vice President and General Manager, is here to accept the award for Central Florida News 13.
Thank you so much. This is sweet. I want to clone you. There's not a station in this country we can give a left arm for you.
I already tried. She's in the contract.
I asked Joe earlier, and he was so glad to see me, but I thought he was going to hit me when I asked. It's humbling to be here and thrilling to be here. My Walter Cronkite story isn't as good as others. We would hang out by the Porta-John at Kennedy Space Center in the early days of the shuttle launch because he would use the Porta-John, so we were guaranteed to speak to him then in the early years of our career. So it was for good reason we were hanging out by those bathrooms. There are a few folks who deserve some very specific thanks. The judges, of course, for selecting Central Florida News 13 for this honor. We set out for a year-long effort. to educate the people of Central Florida and see if we can make them care. And I've been doing this for a very long time and have been looking for some kind of validation that when our tree would fall in the woods, that someone would hear it. And these judges, thank you for hearing our tree fall, because we wanted to see if people could care. And it was our mantra through the year. There is a beauty that comes from working from a privately held company that does not answer to Wall Street, who cares and can worry about their customers and their viewers in a way that is unique. We have that luxury with Advanced Newhouse and Bright House. They don't encourage us to do this. They ask why not. And the answer to that is, I have to go do these stories, got to go. At the beginning of our video, you saw a reporter named Scott Harris. Scott Harris has been an anchor in Central Florida his entire career. He is the quintessential political reporter. He helped us launch News 13 14 years ago and has been my friend for a very long time. And this award is for Scott today. Scott has taken on politicians for years. You need combat pay in Florida to be a political reporter. And he is now taking on a fight against cancer. So if you will offer up good words for him today, he's going to love this award. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Our next category, public television station. And this year, KPBS in San Diego, owned by San Diego State University, won its first Cronkite Award for its penetrating report on the little understood yet powerful San Diego County Board of Supervisors. One screener said this was the best piece she'd ever seen on county government, period. KPBS asked tough questions of officials not used to answering them. Let's watch the clip.
They control a $5 billion budget and make decisions about your safety and your health. They are the County Board of Supervisors. There are 5 of them, all elected. All have been in office for at least 15 years. They oversee services that range from prosecuting criminals to feeding the poor. They have been praised for their ability to balance their budget and amass more than $1 billion in reserves. But they've also been criticized for neglecting their responsibility to the county's poor and most vulnerable citizens. Despite the scope of their job and the size of their budget, the board isn't often scrutinized. They have at times been called the invisible government. Tonight, we take a closer look at who's in charge of the county, what they stand for, and how they spend your money. 3 teachers, an architect, and a rancher. Together, they are the longest-serving board of California's 10 largest counties. All 5 are Republicans, all white, all are between 60 and 70 years old. And they are all graduates of San Diego State University.
This was about, well, it says winter of 96, so that's about 2 years after.
No surprise, they've been dubbed 5 of a kind. Almost in unison, they stand firm on their #1 priority as a county government.
My priorities are still public safety.
The public safety is our #1 priority.
Public safety is the highest priority.
Public safety.
My #1 priority has always been public safety.
The supervisors don't just pay lip service to public safety. It's where they spend most of their money, on the district attorney and sheriff's offices. Board of Supervisors has increased funding to public safety departments for the past 2 years and plans to continue that trend next year. By contrast, the county has consistently reduced its share to social services. That's the department that provides programs for the poor and the sick. The county has even cut funding to programs for kids at risk and victims of domestic abuse.
We could be like some counties like Los Angeles, go way overboard and spend our general fund and be in the red all the time and faced with the bankruptcy issue every time we turn around.
LA County spends about 30% of its general purpose budget on public health and assistance programs. San Diego County spends about 7%.
And here to accept the award are Joanne Farian, KPBS producer and host, Natalie Walsh, senior producer, Suzanne Marmion, KPBS director of news, and Tom Carlo, KPBS general manager.
Thank you very much. I'll let Joanne hold this. Wow, this is an honor, and if you could tell
from how wardrobe dressed me today, you know what job I have at our station. I'm really proud. This may be one of the greatest moments in being the general manager of the public media stations serving in San Diego. 3 years ago, I set out a new vision for our organization because of what I felt was a declining in journalism in our community, in our state, in our country. And I decided we were going to be the premier source of local news analysis across all platforms in 5 to 7 years. It's been 3, and I think we're almost at number 2 right now. We've converged our news operation into one unit that makes a product, and that product is thoughtful news analysis that is of equal quality to the work of PBS and NPR. And we have become literally controlling the news market in San Diego, and our reporters and our products work across all platforms, as we've talked today with the panel. And I'm very proud because, as I say to our staff, our product is local news analysis, so my mother can watch it on TV, my wife and I can listen to it on radio, and my kids can get it on their cell phone. And this is the team that makes it happen. We've made a commitment years ago, too, to get into investigative reporting. And this is one project of many that we do. We do 6 a year. We take 2 months to do them, 1 month in extensive research, and then we start producing stories that are on multimedia on the web. We use Twitter, we use Facebook, we use radio, we do shorts on our news shows on television, culminated by this wonderful documentary. We do 6 a year, and I'm very proud that we can hold the community accountable. And I want to recognize these 3 outstanding professionals and ladies because they're the ones that make it happen. Suzanne Marmion is our Director of News and Editorial Strategy. She decides the editorial vision of 40 people that work across platforms. Joanne Farian is the reporter and the host who does all 6 of these in 1 year. And Natalie Walsh here is our senior producer, executive producer of all of our news programs across platforms in San Diego. So we had an outstanding team, including Chris Maui and Guillermo Sevilla, who aren't here as the production people. And we also, I'm proud to say, had 3 outstanding university interns who did the deep diving, who did the grunt work, and who are outstanding in what they accomplished for us. And they are Mia Taylor, Renee Villasenor, and Hillary Andrews. Thank you very much for this prestigious award. Walter Cronkite was someone, as I was growing up, I looked up to. He was the most trusted man in America. And I remember that as an 11-year-old boy, on November 22nd, 1963, he's the one that told me John Kennedy died. And so to have this award means so much to us. Thank you all very much.
I'd just like to say that some of our most talented broadcast journalism students are here today, sitting in the back, and I think it's just wonderful that this kind of inspiring work can be shown to them. It's worth 3 of my classes, for sure. So thank you all for doing what you do. Our next category is Station Group. Hearst Television garnered its 6th consecutive award for its commitment to airing political coverage in the 30 days leading up to the midterm elections. Over its 25 stations, Hearst aired 67 debates and offered more than 200 hours of political coverage. And here are excerpts from 3 of the stories.
For close to 50 years, Iowa has appointed judges with a merit selection and retention system, a system that was intended to keep politics out of the judicial system until now.
Liberal, out-of-control judges ignoring our traditional values and
the Iowa for Freedom campaign is urging Iowans to vote no on Iowa's 3 Supreme Court justices up for retention, all 3 part of the court's unanimous ruling on same-sex marriage. Drake University Law School Dean Alan Vestal.
If the opponents of same-sex civil marriage think that by not retaining 1 or more of the justices, it's going to change the result of the Varnum case, they're simply not correct.
Vestal says the organization's attempt at changing the court's same-sex ruling is misguided. Even if all the justices up for retention are unseated, that still won't change Iowa's law.
The ad seeks to link Democrat Frank Prattville with 2 favorite targets of conservatives, the president and House Speaker.
But there's one face you might not expect to see, our old friend Frank Cradaville.
Cradaville's locked in a tight race to hang on to his first congressional district seat against Republican Andy Harris. The two have waged a pretty nasty fight through TV advertising. But the dance line ad didn't come from Harris. Instead, it was paid for by the Commission on Hope, Growth, and Opportunity. What's that? A tax-exempt 501c4 organization, which makes the next question, who is that, very hard to answer. The Commission's website, created just 2 weeks ago, says its mission is to influence policy for free market economic growth. It lists a Washington, D.C. address, phone number. The listed contact is a lawyer. What you don't know about the Commission is where its money comes from. Because it's a 501c4 and not a political committee, it is not required to disclose its donors.
As local, state, and national economies drop, the campaign cash crop grows, right past any and all attempts to rein it in.
The campaigns get more expensive every year, John. There's no question about it.
The $25 grand spent on local GOP sample ballots is but a drop in this year's political ocean. Nationally, the running count on the Open Secrets website will soon hit $4 billion.
I don't have a solution to that, and frankly, that I don't think is terribly good for the system.
The system leaves candidates like John Williams scrambling in his race with Tracy Hunter for juvenile court judge. Both must time their ads for maximum effect. But with 52,000 people already asking for early ballots,
close to 25% of the people voting before Election Day,
the pressure to parcel it out just right over 35 days is intense.
Well, you can be on the cutting edge or the bleeding edge. So if you make a good decision, it could probably pay off very well. And if you make a poor decision, you're wasting your resources.
And here to accept the award is Candy Altman, Vice President of News for Hearst Television.
It's truly an honor to be back here. I was lucky enough to accept the award from Walter Cronkite a couple of times and get to meet him in my career. So, like many of you, he holds a special place in my journalistic heart, and so this has tremendous meaning. I bring greetings from our CEO, David Barrett, who was excited and as proud as any journalist I know when he found out that we won the award again. It has tremendous meaning for us as a company. We're about to begin another presidential election cycle, and we have stations in both Iowa and New Hampshire. So you can imagine that we're already deep into that. And with so many critical issues on the table, it's never been more important for us to really focus on serious journalism. And with each station in our market, the focus is on localism, and that's what we try and bring to our coverage all the time. So I accept this award on behalf of 25 stations around the country who do great journalism every day. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Sometimes the judges depart from the announced categories to offer a unique award. This happened twice this year. The judges gave KSL-TV in Salt Lake City, an NBC affiliate, a special commendation for investigative reporting. The award goes to reporters John Daly and Lisa Riley Roche for their investigative series connecting the awarding of state contracts with large campaign contributions made to the governor. An interesting note on this team, the first stories in this series ran the same week on KSL-TV, and its sister newspaper, the Deseret News, merged their newsrooms. This allowed John, a broadcast reporter, and Lisa, a print reporter, to divvy up the work while doubling its impact.
In February, several news outlets reported Governor Gary Herbert's campaign deposited a $10,000 check the same day the governor met with leaders of a coal mining company seeking a permit in southern Utah. State regulators apparently sped up the approval process shortly thereafter, but Herbert's office denied any link. As a result of that story, we compared the governor's public schedule with his campaign donations and found a similar pattern in other cases, some of which played out last fall as the governor was aggressively raising more than $1 million for his war chest. One case involves contractors on the I-15 core rebuild in Utah County, the state's biggest ever road project. 3 teams vied for the contract. One gave the governor's campaign no money, another $35,000, the other, Provo River Constructors, much more. Wadsworth Brothers Construction and partners Ames, Ralph Wadsworth, and Floor have contributed more than $80,000. Around the time most of those donations came in, Guy Wadsworth got 2 meetings with the governor, apparently something no other bidding team had. The governor says the I-15 project was not discussed.
Did they talk about the I-15 project? Did you discuss that with them?
Nope, they've never talked to me about any road project specifically. I have nothing to do with how people get bids. We have independent boards. It's a competitive environment.
A month later, the state awarded the $1.7 billion contract to Provo River. The governor says he had nothing to do with UDOT's decision. He was present at the construction kickoff in March, but told us he didn't know the team won the contract until we told him.
You know they won the bid for I-15 South, I-15 Core, correct?
Now that you told me that, I do.
You didn't know that before? No?
I have not. I don't know who's won the bids on virtually. We have 210 projects, and whether Wadsworth got it, nobody calls me and says, "Hey, guess what?" It's just something that's not even on my radar screen.
UDOT's chief, John Nord, says the Provo River team won the bid because they agreed to do more work in terms of miles, quality, width, lanes, and bridges in less time than the others. He says, quote, "I was never told by the governor who to select or by any member of his staff. It was entirely my decision."
John Daly and Lisa Riley Roche to accept the award.
All right. I think that's a perfect example of how our newsroom partnership is working. As you heard, we started on these stories. Actually, John had done quite a bit of work on on the story initially, was just getting ready to put it together into a TV package. About the time I came over as one of the newspaper people being brought into our new integrated multi-platform newsroom, I have to thank everybody there for welcoming me. As a print journalist with some 25 years of print experience, I knew a little bit about television. My husband used to be in television before he became a psychotherapist. I don't know what you want to make of that. But I really have been welcomed and embraced, and the skills that I can bring to the newsroom have really, I hope, been utilized. And I've had a great opportunity to learn a lot of exciting things about broadcasting. Hey, who knew how much more fun it was to do an ambush interview with the governor with a TV camera? Fantastic. Thank you all very, very much. I really appreciate it. Thank you, John.
You can hold that, it's a little heavy. I just wanted to, well, first of all, I want to thank Lisa. It's incredible as a television reporter for many years, as a lot of you can relate to. You're kind of out there on your own, you're a lone wolf, and then all of a sudden you have a partner, and you're a wolf pack, so look out. These kind of stories, these kind of opportunities don't really present themselves unless you've got really great leadership. We've got great leadership at our operation, starting at the very top. Mark Willis, our CEO, a number of news managers, Tanya Vea, Con Saris, Maria Titsa, supported the work that we did. Without them, you know, we're doing trapeze without a net. And on a high-stakes story like this, you need that backing because there's going to be some blowback, and in this case there was, and it was significant. And they had the character and the spine to stand by our reporting, which made all the difference in the world. I would be remiss not to also mention that for every reporter here, we were all once journalism students, like you see in the back. And it's a really amazing thing when you look at the ripple effect somebody like Walter Cronkite has when coupled with Annenberg and Norman Lear and USC and all of the lives that can be touched by a Walter Cronkite and a Norman Lear, and down the line to eventually these students being inspired by the kind of work that you all are doing. And I just want to thank all of you. And include in that reference to leadership, Pat Dean. Pat Dean was one of my professors when I was in journalism school, and despite my not being the most stellar student, even now, all these years later, everything worked out okay. So hopefully that's an inspiration for all of you back there. And thank you again so much.
The judges also gave WISN TV in Milwaukee a special commendation for its Town Hall Challenge. WISN, a Hearst-owned ABC affiliate, offered viewers a series of statewide town hall debates broadcast live and online, featuring a diverse group of citizens questioning candidates in an interactive format. Here it is.
A few words about the format tonight. I'll be asking the candidates questions for roughly the first 15 minutes or so in a free-flowing conversation. And then we'll begin taking questions from citizen groups around the state. These citizens were recruited based on their participation in their local communities. We found them by reading letters to the editor, minutes of school board, township, and city council meetings. They are Republicans and Democrats, conservatives and liberals, independents, and Tea Party members. Their assignment was to represent Wisconsin and come up with several questions they want answered, questions they all agreed on. And we want to thank them for their time and participation in advance. What I want to do now is weave in our citizen groups because they have questions they would like to direct to the two of you. And we're going to begin tonight with Pam Warnke at WAOW TV in Wausau. And this is, I think, an extension of the conversation we've been having. Pam, why don't you go ahead with your group's question?
It is an extension of what you've been talking about, Mike. John Fisher is here from Wausau, and this is a question that could make or break it for him. John, why don't you go ahead with your question?
Our question, what role, if any, do you feel federal housing policy played in the economic collapse? And what role, if any, do you feel federal housing policy should play in the economic recovery?
Mr. Johnson, we'll begin with you.
Congress's reaction to this thing was a 2,300-page bill that didn't even address the problems of Fannie and Freddie, and they certainly didn't address the too big to fail.
Well, we agree.
I mean, the fact of the matter is that when we had an entity called, big bank, that was termed too big to fail, regulation already failed.
Let me go back to Pam. Pam, did they get the answers they were looking for?
Well, let me ask John, who asked the question. Are they answering your question?
They answered the first part, but the second part, which is more important, is does housing policy play a role in the recovery?
Here to accept the award is Mike Goucher, WISN political analyst, contributing news anchor, reporter, and host of Upfront.
Thank you, Marty, and thanks to the folks at Annenberg and to the Norman Lear Center. It's a pleasure to be with you. On behalf of all of the folks at WISN TV back in Milwaukee, I'm very glad to accept this honor. It was truly a team effort, and I did want to single out a couple of people who are not here today. Rita Alimab was the executive producer of this series of town hall conversations. As anybody who works in the business knows, you're only as good as your producers. It's really true, and she is terrific. She helped identify all those different citizens. She traveled the state, 6 different cities, trying to identify the citizens who participated in this. And yes, isn't it amazing? They could agree on a question they wanted to ask, people with different political stances. I thought that was one of the more fascinating parts of the experience. Rita also oversaw the technical production, which was elaborate, and it was one of those high-wire acts that we felt could go wrong at any time, but fortunately, during 3 debates, it didn't. So Rita really deserves a lot of credit for this project. I also wanted to say thanks on behalf of 3 partners we had. As we all know, we're looking for good partners, people who share our core values, and we had the best in this production. We have Milwaukee Public Television, which also agreed to air the debate, in addition to all the affiliates around the state who are part of this. We had Marquette Law School, which is playing a more active role in public policy, and where I'm also employed. 2 jobs, a journalist working at a law school, kind of an interesting thing. And so we also had a WisPolitics.com, which is a terrific political website in Madison, based in Madison. So they were providing us with a strong online presence. So we're very grateful for that. I'm also grateful for the station management support of this endeavor. Jan Wade, the GM, Dean Maytag, head of our production staff, Lori Walden, the news director. Kudos to them. And also, I don't want to seem like I'm sucking up to the bosses at Hearst, but since I do work for a Hearst station, I want to say to Candy, thank you for your support of this kind of a project. I mean, this informed, engaging journalism is more than just our civic responsibility. I mean, it can also be good television, and I hope we prove that with our 3 debates. You know, this grew out of what we do each and every week in Wisconsin, which is we have a program called Up Front, and we try and provide a smart, incisive take on Wisconsin politics, the issues that matter to the people of Wisconsin, whether it's taxes, whether it's spending, whether it's health care, whether it's jobs. We try and do that each and every week, and I have to tell you, it is so gratifying and heartening to see the response of citizens in our states. There is a hunger for this kind of reporting, and I can tell you that it is truly a privilege for me each and every week to try to satisfy the appetite of our audience. I will close with my Walter Cronkite story, which is not so serious as some today. First of all, I got into this business at a small CBS station in Wausau, Wisconsin, more than a few years ago. And to receive an award with Walter Cronkite's name on it is a very special thing. But my memory of Walter Cronkite was back when I was a student at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And at the end of a long day in classes, we would meander over to a little place called Bob and Jean's Tap, which was a bar not far from that. And drinking age was different in those days. I just want to point that out. But every afternoon we would go over there after class, not every afternoon, on occasion, and we would sit down, and at 5:30 in Madison, Wisconsin, the news would come on. And it would be Walter Cronkite doing the news. And you would be in a bar where people were engaged in all kinds of conversations, talking about the events of the day, and there would be silence. Conversation would stop because Walter Cronkite was on. And so when I hear people, and every one of us who works in television or has at some point, will hear somebody make a flippant comment like, well, it's not brain surgery. Yeah, it's not brain surgery, but it is serious business, and we should treat it accordingly. Thank you very much for this wonderful honor.
In the National Network Program category, the award goes to the PBS NewsHour for its thorough coverage of several key state races that reveal the huge political shift happening in those states and across the country. Correspondents Gwen Eiffel and Judy Woodruff were praised by screeners and judges for talking with real voters, focusing on issues, and letting the candidates speak for themselves.
If you're looking for voters on a Sunday afternoon in Wisconsin, there's no better place than the tailgate scene at a Green Bay Packers game.
Go Packers!
That's where we found three-term Democratic Senator Russ Feingold on the eve of the start of early voting in the Badger State.
Go, Russ, go!
It wasn't so long ago that Feingold, long viewed as a maverick in the Democratic Party, was assumed a shoo-in for a fourth term. His go-it-alone identity would inoculate him against problems other Democrats might have, so the thinking went. But that was before a new president and his ambitious agenda stirred up a hornet's nest of opposition. Wisconsin has voted Democratic in the last 6 presidential elections, some of them just narrowly. Not in 2008, when then-candidate Barack Obama carried the state by 14 percentage points. But less than 2 years later, with the economy still struggling and Obama policies under attack, all the Democrats here, even Russ Feingold, find themselves facing a tougher political environment.
Rand Paul will win in November, and the establishment will be set back on their heels. And the established Republicans will look around and say, wow, we didn't know this was coming.
Blindsiding Republicans as well as Democrats is just fine by Paul.
Part of my reason for running for office is that it's not just that I think we need another Republican. I think we need reform of the whole system.
We caught up with Paul, who avoids most reporters' questions, as he left the Chamber of Commerce meeting.
So what does that mean? What does that say?
I think the issues are more important than the party, and then I think often we get distracted by getting too partisan. I don't see people who are Democrats as always being wrong or Republicans as always being right. And I think there has to be a compromise on the budget. And in order to address the deficit, the only compromise that I think that we can have is that you have to look at the whole budget. We've always excluded the military and said we're not going to cut any military. Or the Democrats exclude the social and domestic welfare spending. Everything has to be on the table. We have to do this intelligently. We can't make it a political football that, oh, he's going to cut Social Security. I'm not going to cut Social Security. But for the future, we have to figure out how to do this, and we can't just keep doing the same thing over and over again.
The other Republicans say, but that's not what we're going to, you're naive, you're moving too fast. What do you say to them?
I think there's going to be a lot of new Republicans coming up there. And so we're hoping that the caucus has a much, maybe a different mixture of folks.
A little more edge, perhaps?
Maybe. I hope so.
Mainstream Republicans have reluctantly embraced Paul. Kentucky Secretary of State Trey Grayson, who Paul defeated in the primary, has endorsed him, but still has misgivings.
An argument I tried to make in the primary, which I didn't succeed, was that we still need a role for government. It just has to be reduced. It'll be interesting when the reality and the rhetoric collide when we get to Washington, because governing's hard. It's really hard.
I've asked the recipient who is accepting on behalf of the NewsHour to just share a few more of her thoughts than those about these pieces. And so please join me in welcoming Gwen Ifill.
I'll just put that there. Yes. Thank you all very much. I love having the last word. I so seldom do. So I get to sum up a lot of what I'm hoping and channel what I hope a lot of you are thinking at this point in this process. But I want to start by thanking you on behalf of Jim Lehrer and Judy Woodruff, who looked really cold in that stand-up, because she was, and Linda Winslow, our executive producer, and David Chalian. Will you please still stand, David, who's hiding, our political producer, our political editor, who has infused us with a new energy because he has way too much. It's a wonderful award, and it's even more wonderful to be able to share it and to share the stage with journalists who are doing such amazing work and amazing stories. It does us all good to see that no matter what you read and what you see and what you hear about, there is still serious journalism afoot across the land. It's all I ever wanted to do, and I think I speak for everyone here in saying that we are drawn to journalism for the nobility that can be found in the stories that we tell, the untold stories, or in shedding light rather than heat on a heated debate or on an overtold story. Most of us got into journalism because we thought on some level we could change the world, and then we realized that we might have to save the world from us. I realize I'm preaching to the choir in some respects here today, so I probably don't have to tell the people in this room that this is tougher than it seems. For most of us, it means doing more with less on a daily basis. It means resisting the lure of a Charlie Sheen story one day or another royal wedding run-up the next. I think they revealed her veil today. At this point in my career, I've worked for newspapers, I've worked for commercial network television, and now in public broadcasting, where like clockwork, we are periodically accused by those on the right and those on the left of bias. Too many of these critics don't actually watch what we do or listen to what we report. This is what we do. Judy Woodruff and I take you around the country to get to the heart of our national political debate. Margaret Warner and Ray Suarez take you to North Korea and Guatemala and Egypt and South Africa to talk about global health and global challenges. Robin McNeil, our old friend Robin McNeil, just completed a 6-part series on autism, devoting the kind of time and care to the topic, on air and online, that fills a void in what we see now as a lack of documentary television. And after 35 years at it, we're just getting started. Last week was the 1-year anniversary of the Gulf oil spill. We looked back and we counted that we did 232 stories on that, and not just on the air. Our online oil spill widget, which kept track of the number of gallons and barrels of oil that spilled into the Gulf, it was embedded on more than 6,000 websites around the world, and it was viewed more than 20 million times. We're convinced that telling the story well matters, whether it's Jeff Brown's conversation last year with the war photographer Tim Hetherington, who was killed last week in Libya, or John Merrill reporting on education, or Paul Solomon making sense of economics with funny hats and funny toys sometimes, or Harry Srinivasan, who honchos our online science coverage and technology coverage. If it sounds like I'm boasting a little bit, you're right. We are justifiably proud of what we do, and we are convinced that even in a drastically shifting media environment, there is a hunger for the work that we do. When I visit college campuses like this one, I'm often approached by students who tell me, but I only watch Jon Stewart. And I tell them, Jon Stewart watches me. Not to worry, Walter Cronkite actually, this is my Walter Cronkite story, he actually once told me that he only watched the NewsHour. So I feel like it's a full circle. That's because journalism and even faux journalism can only flourish when you have a firm foundation. In order to laugh at Jon Stewart, you have to know who Nancy Pelosi is. At the NewsHour, our firm foundation is Jim Lehrer. From the day he created this program with Robin until now, when he applies his convictions and his core beliefs to the broadcast every single day and every single night, he is our guiding star and truly the captain of our team. So that's what we do. That's what more of us can do. And on days like today, I am reminded how many of us are actually doing it and how many of us are doing it well. We might not be saving the world as we thought when we were 18 or 20 or 25 and got into this business, but at least we are making it a more understandable world to live in. Once again, thank you to the Norman Lear Center, to Annenberg, to USC, to Walter Cronkite in absentia, Norman Lear. Thank you all so much for this award.
And thank you all for being here. May I ask you to do one last round of appreciation for all of our winners.